Good afternoon, Keith Tebow from FRC Media. We are getting ever closer to the November 8th state election. Some of you may have either voted already through the mail or taking part in early voting, or will be going on November 8th. But we're trying our best to speak to as many candidates as possible so you can make an informed choice when you do cast your ballot. Today, we're going to focus on the race for state auditor. And I'm pleased to be joined today by Gloria Caballero-Roca. She is the green and rainbow candidate for the race for auditor. Gloria, thank you for joining me. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me and the opportunity. Thanks.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you. One of the things that I like to do when I start these interviews is, especially with the statewide candidates, unless one of the statewide candidates is from the local area, I know you're not from the South Coast or Greater Fall River. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run for state auditor.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I am Dr. Gloria Caballero-Roca. I was born in Cuba. I was raised by a single parent. I am the third of four siblings, and I was a single parent at 19 years old when I was going to college in Cuba. I graduated, I married, had my second child in Cuba, and moved to the United States in 1997. I eventually became a professor. I have two master's degrees, two PhDs, and it's only in the humanities. I have published two books and last year's and several articles. I have shared the results of my research at different international conferences. Last year, I ran for mayor of Holyoke, and I found out, and we were in the middle of a pandemic, that Holyoke was one of the cities that was hardly hit by the COVID-19. While door knocking, people expressed their frustration with, some agencies and state programs that were falling short on delivering on their promises about securing housing and jobs and better schools. I live here in Holyoke, and we have been under school receivership for almost 7 years. Housing is an issue. Rental People renting their housing is also a problem because all real estate is come up because we're in the middle not only of a pandemic but also of an economic crisis and of a climate crisis. This year, I decided to run for state auditor because I think this is an office that has so much unrealized potential. I think the state auditor, um, who should be an independent watchdog for the people, is one of those offices that could be reformed, that could be expanded, and not only do audits when it comes to statistics and government regulations, but also when it comes to including the people's voices and concerns to how much the government is really, really serving the public. Are they securing housing? Are they securing jobs? Are they trying to fix the problems when it comes to green transportation that is also secure, that is also accessible to everybody? Are they funding, which is needed, as my neighbors tell me, funding programs, more programs about mental health and homelessness and people who really need access when it comes to infrastructure because there are people with disability. So
Mm,
these motivated me. I've been motivated
right.
since last year to really be part of not a problem, but also offer solution, suggestions, and bring the people's voices into this, conversation that I think it's really crucial when it comes to state government and agencies serving bottom line
Right.
results for the people.
Let me ask you, being part of the Green and Rainbow Party, it used to be a recognized party across the Commonwealth. Now it's sort of, you have to, be um, part of the electoral process through the gathering of signatures. You have a little more time to do that sort of as an independent. What are the tenets of the party that you hope will be a benefit if you're elected as auditor in terms of some of the broader issues you may have already discussed?
Mhm. Well, what I like about this party is because they believe in grassroots independent candidates. Their values is putting people first before profit, putting peace and putting the environment first before profit. So I find it really appealing, the fact that those values are the same values that I hold. What I like about this is that they would embrace independent candidates that not necessarily are going to follow like robots, whatever they say, but really candidates that are independent, that feel the need to bring people's voices into this conversation and be part of a larger community of people that look at all the problems not from a focused, laser beam party, but also across the board. The Green Party wants to be a party of unity, of inclusion, and of equity. And that really speaks to what I bring to the table when it comes to this race for state auditor.
Yeah. When people think of the auditor's office, a lot of people think that it has to do primarily with just finances, but it's more than that. It's also examining the processes, if you will, of state departments and state agencies, and even a the processes of something like another branch of government, like the legislature. What will be some of your priorities? You touched upon it a little bit, but if you're elected auditor, what specifically do you hope to address in terms of some of the agencies you'd like to oversee, and whether the state legislature should be looked at in terms of not only how their finances are being spent, but also the processes in terms of how they can serve their constituents better.
Yeah. So that's why the state auditor has to be an independent person that is doing this job. If I am elected, I want to make sure and make clear that people who work with me have this in their mind. This is a watchdog for the people's interests. And we're going to be auditing not only, as you said, statistics and if people are following regulations, but also where is the government investing those taxpayers' money? And if the people are really being served, I want to not only audit the numbers, but I want to socialize the number. I want to bring in the people into this conversation. Are they receiving all the benefits, and their questions and needs and concerns, are those being answered? And also, I would like to establish, in order for the government to focus more on bottom line results, I would like to establish a citizens audit panel. And this would be made up of appointees from independent people who are specialized independent audits, people who have been involved in grassroots and organizations that are advocating for housing, they're advocating for better jobs and securing Medicare for all or better Medicare services for all. And in that way, we are making sure that the bottom line results are being really established and getting. Also, I would like not only to do that, but also make sure that these agencies have a protocol whereby they ensure not only effectiveness, but preventive measures. So before you have all this money, I mean, before we get into a crisis like Puerto Rico, for instance, or the COVID pandemic, or the transportation crisis in Boston, are those agencies have established a protocol or some money that would prevent all the crisis. And keep in mind that it's not only people of low income that live in low income households that are affected when crises arise, it's everybody across the board, right? So how can we prevent people from falling through the cracks? Is there a system that is created so that we can say, hey, there's a plan B? Are we really auditing all these bridges that need to be, for instance, restored? Are we being auditing these agencies that promise that they're going to be working and funding measures for the crisis of the environment? Is that a reality? And how much in reality are they investing? Is that a slow process? We need to find out, because being slow and trying to make sure that things don't change is worse than inaction. All that needs to be part of the job of a state auditor. And I promise that I will work with the people and for the people to really embrace a new office in which people trust, or to restore
Right.
more the trust in state government.
Yeah.
Because I
Let me
will
ask
blow
you.
the whistle. because I will.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
No, that's
One of the things that we hear about a lot here in the Fall River area, and Fall River and Holyoke are similar in many ways, both gateway cities. A lot of times, people in communities like Fall River and Holyoke will say to the people in Boston, "Well, those in the executive branch only care about Boston. They don't care about us because we're not in the 128, 495 Beltway." That is, near the Metro Center in Boston. As a state auditor, how do you feel you can serve gateway cities like a Fall River, like a Holyoke, to make it feel like that we're being heard here in the South Coast and in other gateway cities,
well. Imagine I live in Holyoke.
right?
I live in Holyoke. I want to bring our voices, right into the corridors of Beacon Hill. I want to make sure that this office is, put feet on the ground, boots on the ground. It is not from my point of view because I'm an activist. I come from grassroots activism. We have to canvas, right? Do more canvas, and we have to go where people are, where people live. And numbers are not made up out of, magic. Numbers are made out of people who wake up in the morning, who go to work, who suffer, who need support, and we need to approach those people. We need to go out, not stay in the east, but go out, out to the west and to Center Mass and Western Mass and the Berkshires. These are areas where not only, forestry and beautiful leaves when the fall comes, right? When people come just to do tourism, we're people who need the government to understand that we need the support of those agencies. And we're also saying that we will be spearheading the changes that need to be happening in our state government. So Central Massachusetts, Western Massachusetts, the Berkshires, Eastern Massachusetts is part of a commonwealth. And for me, the word common reminds me of the commons, you know? So this is where we all should be pitching in with ideas from across the board, respecting each other, being reasonable to each other, and understand that this Western Massachusetts and Fall River and Holyoke, we are not only mill cities, we are people who live in these cities that also have a saying when it comes to programs that need to be fixed and corrected. Because at the end of the day, we are at the receiving end of those policies. And we as a people across the board, we know how the problems should be fixed because we are receiving, we are not receiving all the services that we deserve. I teach at the Bard College here at the center, the care center here in Holyoke. And my students have lived in their cars with their children because of lack of capacity in different shelters because their family consists of children of different sexes, My students also are struggling trying to find solutions for their medical care because they have the need of mental health services that are not there because of lack of funding of those agencies. So yes, we're human beings. We feel, we have dreams, we have opinions, we have things that we can contribute for a better Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So come on down.
Let me ask you, how difficult do you think it will be if elected? Because there's so much bureaucracy in state government, and I guess that's a big part of what the auditor can do, right? Find ways to make things easier for people, make processes more efficient for people, to overcome some red tape. How important is that for you to try to help solve? And how important is it for you also, based on some of the things I read on your website, to be more active in terms of some of these social justice issues?
hmm It is crucial, if you want people to have access to those programs, because there's already money invested in that. It's taxpayers' money. So you make sure that there are not barriers to participation. One of those could be language barrier. I am Hispanic. I speak Spanish, but there's so many. I speak English. Of course, I speak Spanish, but there's so many people who don't speak English. How
Mhm.
are we making those processes accessible so that people own the process and they know how to navigate the system? I would like to see more language justice, for instance. I would like to see the processes being, not so complicated. Why not eliminate certain steps? And instead of just going from A, B, and Z, when you just want to go to B, you don't have to go to Z. So we will try
Right.
to make the process more friendly user, more realistic. Not everybody has, for instance, because many of these processes are done online, you need internet connection. There's so many senior people, senior citizens that don't have that capability. They need internet and all the technological literacy. Young people, I also teach, co-teach at Springfield Technical Community College, and you'd be surprised how many young people don't know how to send an email because they're used to using their phones, only TikTok, etc., etc. So,
Mm.
what are we doing for those people to really have access to those services? Are we really engaging them in this conversation? Is this part of the state auditor's work or job to make sure that everybody from across the board has access to those services? So we need to make sure people have internet access. They have this
Mhm.
technological, digital literacy, that people have also language justice. And we, as much as possible, should reduce the bureaucracy around services that are needed, very expeditiously.
Mm, yeah. Let me ask you as we wrap up, how have been, as a third party candidate or an independent candidate, um, you don't tend to get a lot of the publicity as a Democrat or Republican running in the race. What have you been trying to do to get your name out there and get people to consider you for auditor when they go to the polls?
It's been really interesting. It's a process where, I mean, in which you understand that we need change when it comes to elections and who gets to be represented, whose voices are heard out there. I recently was told by someone in a big television campaign, show, that why interview me when I would take airtime from his favorite candidates, and then he would waste time asking me question, whereas the other person is not going to have time enough to make their case. So it's been hard, and what I think it does is a disservice to the people from across the board. People should know how many people are running for any office. People should not be constantly fed the two major party candidates when they're parties that are funded by corporations. They have a very, very, a lot of strength when it comes to publicity, but it's also voter suppression. It is also censorship. And the way we have been doing it is grassroots, door knocking, going to Worcester, going to Pittsfield, going to Boston, door knocking, using all our friends and contacts, having a website, gloriaforauditor.org, using my Facebook. And it's a struggle. It is a grassroots struggle that is not only affecting me, it's affecting all the voters. And
Mm,
this is a part of what I've called voter suppression, censorship, and it's a disservice to the people who really trusted us and gave us their signature so that we can get on the ballot.
yeah. Dr. Gloria Caballero-Roca, thank you for speaking to the people of Fall River, and hopefully they will see this message and give you consideration for auditor by November 8th. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And please vote Gloria Caballero-Roca, candidate with the Green Rainbow Party for State Auditor, November 8th, gloriaforauditor.org. Thank you so much for the invitation.
All right. And thank you for joining us here in FRC Media. I'm Keith Tebow. Please make a point to vote by November 8th.